Welcome back to Outdoor Exploration. It has been freezing, like seriously freezing, for the first time this winter, and it's mid-February, so that's unusual. Because of that, we have plants all over the place, that like this dock here at my feet, that were up and basically thinking it was spring a couple of weeks ago, like my chicken who went broody a month ago and now has week and a half old chicks in this ice. We had to add a little heater to their coop just to make sure, because it has dropped to, I think it got to -5 up by the house, and apparently in some places with wind chill it was in the negative teens somewhere, and in the interior almost -50 with wind chill. So I just thought, let's go out and explore what's happening when you get a deep freeze in the middle of what the land was thinking was spring. And yeah, so the creek is still running. You can hear the dam running behind me. This is the pond in my house. And it's the water's hitting everything and freezing. And the pond itself is freezing, and we're waiting excitedly for it to hopefully become thick enough we can skate on. It's nowhere near right now. I can break it. I think it's maybe 1.5 inches. Anyway, one of my favorite things to do at this pond, whether it's frozen or just in the summer, is hang out on that jumping board my father created and just look in it. So let's have a look what we see. So from here, this is how I can see how thick it is, because you can see the little bubbles, and over there are some much bigger bubbles. Basically, the plants in the bottom of the pond, and I don't know, there are algae and other whatever they're called, water plants, release gas, and the gas comes up periodically, and you see these little bubbles come up. So the bubbles come up and freeze into the ice that's forming, and then however thick the ice is basically the point at which the bubbles will stop. So you can see by looking really closely that well, I can see from here that the furthest bubbles away from the surface are about, it looks like about 1 inch actually. I was really hoping it was more, but it's not. And so beautifully, I can just look under there, and once in a while I see some tiny little movement because the ice is still pretty clear. We haven't had snow to rough up the surface, so I can just see, I mean, it's not clear enough to really see what they are, unless of course I saw, a fish go by or something, which I haven't. But whatever little insects are still having their little lives down there, it's just so wonderful. My favorite is when it's actually frozen enough to walk on, and I just lay on my belly and watch on the ice. It's so nice, but it's not there yet. So hopefully on the weekend it will be frozen enough if it doesn't thaw before then. Oh, there come some bubbles right now. So I was thinking we should head out and see what else is freezing on this island, and yeah, just see how everything's doing in this early spring deep freeze. I just drove across the island to come to this lake, which is the highest, most accessible lake on the windy side of the island, which is quite cold usually, and usually the first gathering spot for us, well, for a lot of islanders, when we went to go skating. And guess what? It's not frozen. So I am guessing that's because it's been so windy that it just couldn't freeze. But anyway, you never can predict. Well, maybe you can, but I didn't. Anyway, look at this gorgeous ice forming along the base of all these little dead drowned trees. I just think it's so pretty. There's always something to find, even if it's not what you expect. I guess we'll just go check out the beach then. I decided to come to the beach because, because there are some fabulous icicles I want to get to shortly. But along the way, isn't it interesting how you find little bits of ice at the beach, even when it's like the ocean isn't frozen, right? Because salt water doesn't freeze. So I just always wonder, is this like where the salt has separated itself out of the salt water so that it could freeze there, which I sort of suspect because we're below the high tide line. The high tide is right behind me, so this had to have been wet in the water recently, as in today sometime, and yet it's ice. It hasn't rained, so it must have separated itself out, the salt. Like, you know, in the Arctic, apparently there's a layer of extra salty water just at the top under the permafrost, or the ice on the water, sea ice I guess it's called, and that's because it's come out of the ice in order that the crystals could form, right? So I just wonder, is there salt in this cool piece of driftwood? I don't know. Anyway, cool. Poor little sea star over there. My face is starting to freeze up. It feels all stiff. Alder tree. A couple weeks ago, I guess, we did the snow episode when we had our brief 2 or 3 days of snow, and I mentioned that I figured the alders should be getting their catkins, but I didn't have any around my house to show you, and here they are at the beach. Some that I can reach, and they are here. They're nowhere near ready, but you can see them starting. And they'll get like this long, and then we can eat them. That's it. Something I always find interesting in the winter, well, when it really gets cold in the winter, is how the leaves all curl up and droop, like that spurge back there that looks all wilted. And it has something to do with the water availability. So it happens in the summer too. And I guess basically all the plants bring up the water from the ground, and it comes out, and then it's let out on, usually I think, the underside of the leaves. But if everything freezes hard like it has now, then there's no water available, and the plants could totally dehydrate. So they basically close up their pores and stop letting the water out and shut down the whole system for a while. I guess it's like hibernation. And you can see these two, but not as, they're also all floppy because they're not stiff from being full of water. They basically just shut down and wait for the thaw. It's interesting that these spurge are blooming right now. You can see the tiny little green flowers. They're beautiful despite being a horribly invasive species. But yeah, they're kind of part of our environment now. Anyway, that's why everything's curled up right now, like the rhodos at my house. Anyway, let's see what else we find. Hello! I found the icicles. So, I don't even know what to say about these except they're awesome. I come here almost every time it freezes because they're so great and so colossal. Okay, they're not that big. Obviously, you can go to a creek or waterfall or something and you'll have bigger ones. But what I love is that this is just some water that drips off the moss all year long, and well, as long as there's no drought, I guess. And in the winter it becomes these ice pillars with all their wrinkles along them and everything else. When I was a kid, we used to go up to get our Christmas tree up the mountain behind our house, and we always passed a little bluff like this that had icicles like a tenth of this size, and we always stopped to get one to eat along the way. unless it was one of the warmer years where we didn't have any. But yeah, I wouldn't eat these. They look kind of yellow, and you know, who knows what really is up on top of that cliff, but still, what a wonderful thing to look at. So I leave you with some beautiful views of these gorgeous icicles, and until next time, happy exploring.